What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Dritesboro Sports Channel. Ethan here. We're going to do NFL Week 3 reactions. We'll talk a little bit of fantasy, but it'll kind of just be like the last couple reaction videos we've done from the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. Before we get into the Thursday night game, please feel free to like the videos and subscribe to the channel if you guys find these entertaining or helpful at all. Also, please feel free to leave comments if you guys have fantasy football questions and we don't answer them in the videos. I would love to help with your guys' teams. Best way to do it as of right now is just to comment on the videos and I'll get back to you ASAP. Usually would be pretty quickly depending on what time you are commenting. So let's get into the reaction. Try not to make it too long of a video, starting with Thursday Night Football. New England at New York Jets. The Jets dominated. It wasn't even a close game at all. Rodgers showed out. He had some great passes. Garrett Wilson caught some good stuff. Braylon Allen got in on some of the action. Breece Hall looked great. No one on the Patriots did anything, including Hunter Henry. He had a come back to earth game. Jets looked really good. I am kind of surprised that New England didn't look at least a little bit better, but at the same time, the Jets have a good defense, and they got Aaron Rodgers. So what they're going to plan on doing all year is they're going to ride the Aaron Rodgers ability to command an offense and be like a good quarterback still, even though his limitations are there because of his age. He still is going to be able to run an offense effectively. He's a smart quarterback, so they're just going to ride that all season, and then their defense is good enough to keep him in most games. So the Patriots showed us on Thursday night that they are the Patriots we thought they would be. They're just bad. They have a decent defense, but it's not incredible, and then they have a really bad offense, and if the running game isn't going, they're going to be a bad team. So that's what we learned there. I don't think I'm going to go into too many fantasy things. We'll talk about players here and there, but if you guys have specific questions on specific guys that we don't touch in the video, I just comment, and I'll get back to you on my thoughts on them. But, unless something crazy happens, we're not going to spend too much time on it. For example, this game, Stevenson, we'll touch on him. He is still, a low-end RB1, high-end RB2. He just had a horrible matchup, and if they're going to be in games, which they're going to be sometimes, that they're going to be losing badly, they're going to kind of have a hard time getting Stevenson fantasy points in that game because of the game script, and they're going to kind of get away from the run, and that's what happened in this one. They just had nothing on the ground, and he suffered from it. The good thing about Stevenson is he's able to catch passes out of the backfield still, so usually he's able to catch some screen passes or checkdowns, which will save you a lot of weeks, and that's why he's still a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 kind of player in my eyes. He's probably not a low-end RB1. He's like a RB2, high-end RB2. But it'll save you every now and then. In this game, he came out of the game for a while with a finger injury, and that kind of limited his touches. So that's what happened there. We talked about Hunter Henry. He's just going to have up and down games like most tight ends, and he had a down game in this tough matchup. The Jets, Garrett Wilson had a decent game and got a touchdown, and Conklin looks like he's going to be one of those tight ends that is streaming. You can stream, but he's going to have up and down games. Lazard continues to catch touchdowns. However, I will say Mike Williams is slowly looking like he's getting more reps, so keep that in mind. That's all we're going to touch on that game. Let's move on. Excuse me. All right, getting into the Sunday games, we're going to go on to the Giants and the Browns. Shout out to the Giants. I definitely didn't think they had a good chance of pulling this off. I thought the Browns' defense would look better. They didn't. Even the Browns' offense, Amari Cooper got going. He caught 2 touchdowns in this game, and they still just had nothing against a very mediocre Giants defense. The Browns' line seems to be really struggling compared to what we've seen the last couple of years, and the Giants' defense was able to get after Deshaun Watson. Also, Deshaun Watson just proves to be not very good. He has a receiver like Amari Cooper, so every now and then he can show a flash because of how talented Amari Cooper is, but he just sucks. And the Browns' offense is going to be mid at best all season because of it. I don't like Jerry Jeudy. I mean, if he's not going to catch a touchdown, like we've said before, he's not going to be very fantasy relevant. Amari Cooper, it's nice to see him get back on track. He's still, like a low end, probably like a high end wide receiver too. His ceiling's capped because of Deshaun Watson. However, you have to continue to play him after he kind of showed you some life in this game against the Giants. The running back, the backfield in Cleveland is miserable. You don't really want to play any of their running backs until Nick Chubb comes back, and hopefully Nick Chubb looks decent. However, I'm not too confident about that with Nick Chubb coming off of an insane knee injury. I mean, I think maybe next year Nick Chubb will be kind of being back to normal, but I'm worried about later this season how good Nick Chubb's really going to be. The Giants, Malik Neighbors is him. Daniel Jones continues to suck, but like Malik Neighbors is so good that he's able to get away with it. I will say this was although this was like a crazy game from Malik Neighbors, you still want to continue to see some more from him, and you just hope he stays healthy all year. However, Malik Neighbors is a guy that I am starting to kind of see that I am wrong about. He's proving to be as talented as a lot of people thought he was, and a guy that is with his talent, similar to like a Justin Jefferson, is quarterback proof. And that's what he's proven right now. Daniel Jones sucks still, but like he's so good and he's always so open that he's just gonna keep having great fantasy performances even with a bad quarterback. The thing with the Giants is like even though the quarterback sucks, the rest of the situation's pretty good for wide receivers. Like they're going to be down in a lot of games, or most games are going to be very close. They're going to have to continue to throw the ball. Malik Neighbors is like the guy that they're willing to get 10-plus targets to every game. As the season goes on, you think he's just going to get better, and that connection with Daniel Jones is going to continue to grow. Malik Neighbors is a wide receiver 1, and I'll admit I was kind of wrong about him going into the season. I thought Daniel Jones was going to limit his upside, but Malik Neighbors is just that talented that this early that his upside is not really hinderable that much because of how good he is. So shout out to the Giants fans and Malik Neighbors. They still only got their first win. Maybe I think this says more about the Browns being bad than it says about the Giants being good. But at the very least, the Giants found a new star receiver, and it seems like they're getting pretty fortunate with these star receivers coming through New York there. So as far as Singletary, I mean, he fumbled 2 times. Singletary's just not very good, and that's a guy I was right about all offseason. He's just not going to be that good. I mean, there's going to be some games where he's able to like roll into the end zone or like some good matchups where he'll get you some points. It seems like he's mostly featured, so like he's getting some check down passes. He's like fantasy viable, but like his ceiling is an RB2. Like that's his ceiling. He's never going to like have consistent amazing games for you. I wouldn't be surprised at all if someone starts to eat into his workload as the year goes on. That's a guy. Something you want to look at is if you're trying to target the Giants backfield for whatever reason, you want to look at the backups. But as of right now, he's healthy. He had a mid-game because of his fumbles. I can't remember if he got it in the end zone or not. He maybe got it in the end zone and saved his day, but it wasn't like a very pretty game at all from him. That's pretty much it that I want to mention for this game. Shout out Giants for a good win, though. I will say that ended on that. Moving on, Bears and Colts. Kind of predictable, I think. I'm going to say that, and I don't remember what I predicted. So that's my bad. If you want to call me out on something I say in this video that I got wrong, feel free to. But we're going to go with it. Kind of predictable. Colts beat the Bears. The Bears just aren't very good. They got Caleb Williams struggling to kind of find his way as a rookie quarterback. Now, I will say he looks fine for a rookie. I mean, if you look at all the rookie quarterbacks so far, Caleb Williams is fine. I mean, he's one of the only guys that's like throwing the ball with any sort of like makes you feel any sort of optimism. Like he's throwing some touchdown passes and some nice balls, but their team just isn't gelled yet. The offense isn't gelled. They don't have a running game. DeAndre Swift sucks. Keep an eye on DeAndre Swift. I guess we'll start kind of there. I mean, keep an eye on him and like Roschon Johnson getting some more touches. Still want nothing to do with that backfield because it's like a 3 backfield split. Maybe one of them gets traded though, so keep that in mind as we get closer to the trade deadline. Keenan Allen's been out, so Dunze's looked pretty good, but now that Keenan Allen's going to probably come back in this next week, you kind of have to go back to like lowering Odunze in your fantasy expectations. DJ Moore's still the wide receiver 1, but even he gets like a little bit lower because Keenan Allen's coming back. Don't really like anything about that team right now. Because the guy I want to say I like the most is Keenan Allen, but like he's been hurt and doesn't look great. So it probably has to be DJ Moore, but because of Odunze and Keenan Allen, his ceiling's capped. So we'll see, though. Maybe DJ Moore goes out there and goes off this week. That's happened before where I project him to have kind of a mediocre performance, DJ Moore, and then he goes crazy the next week. So keep an eye. Definitely guys you want to own on your fantasy team, but maybe just like lower expectations until we see more. Caleb Williams is still figuring it out a little bit, and they don't have a good running game. Cole Kmet, I guess we'll mention him. He had a big game. So that's a guy I picked up in some of my leagues. Just a streaming option and then a good backup option if you're looking for that. Going to be inconsistent like all the other tight ends. However, he looked great. And I think a lot of times Cole Kmet has started season slow. And then as he gains confidence with his quarterback, he starts to have more consistent outings. So we'll see if that happens again this year with Caleb Williams. Moving on to the Colts, they really needed this win. Anthony Richardson's not a good passer. If you have a Colts wide receiver, I'm looking to trade them, and I'm at the very least like I'm not wanting to start them weekly. Anthony Richardson obviously has a big arm, and seems like the only person that connects with Anthony Richardson on deep passes is Alec Pierce, and then that's the only thing Alec Pierce does the entire game. Not something I care for in fantasy at all. And then Michael Pittman Jr. and Downs, as of right now, a limited sample size, they're just suffering because of the inability for Anthony Richardson to be like a competent thrower. He still has rushing upside for fantasy, Anthony Richardson does. However, I just am not confident in the passing game at all. Jonathan Taylor still looks pretty good. He gets into the end zone in this game. I'm pretty sure, once again, I'm forgetting. I'm doing this video a day late. But Jonathan Taylor looks good. You still continue to start him. Not much of the tight end room to speak of there. Let's move on to probably the shock of the week, a game I know for a fact I was wrong on. I had the Texans winning this game, and then the Vikings go there on the... No, it wasn't on the road. It was in Minnesota, but they get the job done with ease. They blow out the Texans. Texans looked bad. I think it was kind of because the Vikings defense is legit. And I'm going to go on to say that the Vikings as a whole are legit, and they're very well coached. Shout out to Sam Darnold for continuing to look good. He got a little banged up, but I think he's fine. The Vikings are just like very well coached, and they have a great coach and a great like staff in that organization. And I think that's playing a big part in them winning. You wouldn't think they'd be that good with Sam Darnold, but they've made Sam Darnold look good, and then the defense is playing outstanding. So we'll see if they can keep it up, but I'm willing to kind of hop onto the trusting the Vikings bandwagon here. Not much of crazy fantasy stuff on the Vikings end. I mean, we're looking at Addison getting healthy. We're looking at if Naylor ever establishes more of a consistent role. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's the guy there. He's a dog. Aaron Jones had a great game. Aaron Jones is kind of like a high-end wide running back 2, solidified RB2 with some upside. Not much to speak of the tight ends there, but they just look great as a team, including their defense, like I've said. The Texans, I mean, we thought their defense was good going into this game. They're kind of mediocre, I think. They just got pummeled on the road. Maybe that had something to do with it. Luckily, the Texans were 2-0 going to this game, so they can afford a loss. However, it's an ugly loss. Not a good game from their offense at all. Maybe it was because Joe Mixon was out and their running game wasn't very good, but is that more Joe Mixon or the Vikings defense? I think it's the Vikings defense. Obviously, Joe Mixon would have helped, but we didn't see it. Cam Akers catches the touchdown pass. Don't want Cam Akers unless Joe Mixon's out. Joe Mixon's the guy there for sure when he's healthy. The receivers struggle a little bit. Stephon Diggs caught a lot of passes. I think the receivers that struggled were all of them besides Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs has a lot of targets and receptions. Nico Collins had chances. They were playing him tight coverage and he wasn't able to convert. I'll say out of those three receivers, I'm going to kind of change up what I was saying at the beginning or at the end of last week. Tank Dell's worrying me now. I thought this was going to be a good Tank Dell get right game. It wasn't, and I think he came out of the game a little injured. He's coming back from his injury, and I was saying it a lot this offseason. I don't know why I didn't stick to it. He's coming back from this injury, and we shouldn't really expect to see him be back to himself this year, especially with Stephon Diggs there and Nico Collins. I will say, as of right now, you want Nico and Stephon Diggs. However, as the season goes on and maybe Tank Dell's able to kind of get more back from this injury he's coming back from, maybe later this season he emerges a little bit. I'm not very happy right now if you're a Tank Dell owner because he looks like he's the obvious third option there. He hasn't gotten in the end zone, and he doesn't look fantastic as of right now. So keep an eye on that situation. Stephon Diggs looks good, though. So we'll see how that continues to play out. Shout out the Vikings. They're legit. That's an awesome win. All right, moving on. We got the Eagles and the Saints. A very good game, which we predicted going into this week. Very good game. I really liked the fact that the Eagles were able to pull this one off. It would have looked really bad for Eagles fans if they went 1-2 to start the season. However, it was a great game. I mean, it's not a knock to the Saints. It's a weird one. I think it says a little bit more about the Saints, but both teams can still come out of this game feeling like solid about where they're at, I think. I think the Saints are just a little bit worse than they showed us through the first 2 weeks. I mean, the Saints had who did they play? I mean, the Panthers, I'm pretty sure they played in a game, and then they dominated another team. I can't remember. I think they beat a really good team. Yeah, they beat the Cowboys. So, I mean, that's obviously a good win, but they also beat the Panthers. I mean, I think the Saints are just a little worse than maybe we thought through the first 2 weeks. I don't think Derek Carr is like an amazing quarterback. I think he's a middle-of-the-road guy, and that got exposed in this game. I think if teams are able to slow down the running game for the Saints, they're going to struggle, like we saw. Chris Olave, finally, fantasy-wise, starts to show some stuff, which you like to see, but you still want to see some more from him in what should have been a pretty good matchup. Rashid Shaheed, man, we talked about this before. He's not going to do much for you if he's not going to catch a long touchdown pass. There's going to be several weeks where he does, and you feel great. But there's going to be a lot of weeks where he doesn't. He does nothing, and that's what you're kind of signed up for if you own Rashid Shaheed on your fantasy teams. It's a guy that I'm willing to definitely look to trade. Alvin Kamara gets slowed down in this one too. Still continue to start Alvin Kamara for sure. The Eagles, I mean, like I said, they needed this win. Jalen Hurts looked pretty decent. Didn't throw for any touchdowns, I don't believe, off the top of my head, but yeah, he didn't because this was a Saquon game. Saquon looks amazing. Jalen Hurts looks fine. It is a little concerning because Devontae Smith took a brutal hit, and I think he's going to be out at least a week with a concussion. On top of A.J. Brown being out probably. I don't know what the receiving room's going to look like there. I don't know what they're going to look like in their next game. It's something to keep an eye on. If A.J. Brown and Devontae are both out, who's that next receiver? It's probably Jahan Dotson, but I don't think he looks very good yet in the offense. Dallas Goedert game, though. Dallas Goedert went crazy. He's a guy, he's going to be a tight end. He's going to be up and down. However, he's a guy that if you have him, just start him every week. He's a tight end one. So, Saquon Barkley game, shout out Saquon Barkley. Shout out the Eagles for getting a good win. However, they did get some injuries in that game. So, we'll see what they're looking like heading into week 4. Really boring game here. Chargers at Pittsburgh. Boring game. I don't even know what to say about this. I mean, the Steelers defense is legit, and they're probably the best defense in the NFL through first 4 weeks. The rest of the team is boring. You don't really want to start Justin Fields if you don't have to. Najee Harris is the guy. However, he's capped because he's not that good, and Jaylen Warren gets some carries still. Don't don't think the wide receivers did a whole lot. I think Pat Freiermuth had a decent game, but, like, man, this game was just boring. I don't have a lot to say about it. Just, like, if you want to own any players from the Steelers, you want their defense. As far as the Chargers go, they just get shut down by good defense. Justin Herbert struggling with a ankle sprain. He had to leave late in the game, and then it just, like, went even worse from there. They just got shut down. We knew J.K. Dobbins was going to have a hard time in this game. Just running the ball on the Steelers' defense is hard. Doing anything on the Steelers' defense is hard. I think Ladd McConkey looked decent, so that's something to take away from here. Quentin Johnson's still a guy there. We'll see how it looks when Palmer's back in the lineup. However, like, it's just the same thing. It was a bad matchup for the Chargers, so you still have to, like, play those guys that have shown some spark through the first couple weeks. However, don't overreact to a bad game because it was a horrible matchup. However, they're not that good of a team. So there's going to be some matchups this year where they're going to get shut down. And as far as the Steelers go, like, their defense is sick, but their offense is just so mid as well. It doesn't really matter what their matchup is. They're just not that excited about most Steelers offensive players until they figure more out. Moving on to probably the second surprise of the week, and we'll spend a minute on this one because you guys know I'm a Broncos fan. I'm not going to spend too much time, but very, very much of a surprise. Denver goes into Tampa and upsets the Buccaneers. The game isn't even close. Denver's defense rocked, and they looked fantastic. Buccaneers as a whole looked like they just weren't ready. I think that Baker Mayfield said it after the game. They just didn't take the Broncos seriously, and that's what happens in the NFL, I guess. If you don't take a team seriously, you're just going to get beat. Simple as that. You don't overreact. You continue to start Godwin. You continue to start Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield's like Derek Carr. Just don't over hype those guys. However, they're competent quarterbacks that you can play in matchups. I would say, as far as the backfield goes there, I am getting very worried about Rachaad White. Bucky Irving just looks like the better running back, way more explosive. If you own Rachaad White, I'd look to sell him. And if you have Bucky Irving, I'd start to get a little bit excited. The problem is they're going to continue to split carries. Both of them aren't going to be good in fantasy. So we'll see if one of them either ends up getting completely overtaken or if one of them ends up getting hurt or something, then it'll be something to really talk about there. As of right now, though, if they're going to split carries, they both really aren't that playable unless it's a great matchup. The Broncos, though, I mean, they show signs of life. I mean, pretty much any team that goes 0-3, their season's essentially over. There's a stat saying, less than 1% of teams that go 0-3 make the playoffs. So, good win for them. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They still have issues in this game. I mean, Bo Nix still was close to throwing 3 picks in this game at least, and the Buccaneers defense just didn't take advantage. However, there was more positivity there. I think Bo Nix looks like he's getting a little bit more comfortable. Going into Tampa and having a game like they did is exciting as a Broncos fan. You definitely don't want to overreact to it because, they're going to go into New York this week and play Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and you're going to have to see it again to trust it. I mean, if they go in there and lay a goose egg like they did the first 2 weeks, then it's back to square one. I will say Courtland Sutton looked good in this game. He got a lot of targets. Tyler Beatty, I think his name's Beatty. I've heard a lot of people in Broncos land this week debating if his name's Bidet or Beatty. Bidet sounds weird to me. I'm going to stick with Beatty until I hear him and see him himself say that it's the other way around. But Tyler Beatty looks like an emerging running back. He's a guy you can go and pick up. However, you can't get excited about him as long as Javonte and Julian McLaughlin are still there. I'm going to say this about Javonte. I think he's washed because of his knee injury. And it sucks to say as a Broncos fan. I really like Javonte Williams. He was awesome his first year as a Bronco. However, he suffered a terrible knee injury, and now I think he's never coming back from it. I mean, he's had over a year now to show sparks. He hasn't. He looks slow. He looks drained, and I think it's because of his knee injury. He's just not the same guy. He doesn't break tackles anymore. It's really sad, but he's almost cuttable. He has a horrific fumble in this game. Cuttable in fantasy and almost in real life. They're not going to as of right now, but it's an ugly backfield for the Broncos. I wouldn't want to start any of them. No tight end has really emerged there. I mean, Greg Dulcich, I think, had like 2 catches, and that's about it. Sutton's, you have him on your fantasy team, you have to play him and probably matchup based. It was nice to see him get like double-digit targets. Reynolds is a guy there as well that like he might catch a really nice ball for you every now and then and like score a touchdown, but you can't really start him. So we'll see if some of the younger wide receivers end up getting some look as the season goes on. Broncos offense still not one that you want to own and play in your fantasy leagues. However, as a fan, fantastic win. It's nice to see some competency after almost a decade of absolute crap, essentially, and just no offense ever. It's fun to watch them when like they show some competency on offense because it's just so boring when your team just does nothing offensively. Shout out the defense as well. They shut down Baker in what seemed like a good Buccaneers offense. Unfortunate for the defense, one of their best defensive players, Alex Singleton, tore his ACL in this game. That's going to be a major hit to defending the run and overall just like solidifying the linebacker position. So Broncos defense, I mean, we'll see what they do. Not excited about that at all if you're a fan of the Broncos defense. So we'll move on. I know I spent too long on that. I'm just a Broncos fan. So let's get through these a little quicker here. Packers roll the Titans. I'm gonna make this one quick. Titans suck. Mostly Will Levis sucks. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, and I think he just is horrible, and he's not really going to get better. I really like the Packers. However, like the Titans just continue to prove that they're just bad. DeAndre Hopkins shows a flash in this game. Just not excited about any. When you have a team this bad, I'm just not really that excited about any fantasy players on the team. Packers are really good. Even without Jordan Love, they continue to just beat teams here. Malik Willis continues to show competency. The coaching staff there is amazing. Josh Jacobs down game, kind of to be expected. Not a great matchup. The backup running back there, don't even know his name on the top of my head. I've been seeing stuff about him for sure, but he scores the touchdown. I think they're just like winning, and they're just like, oh, let's give Josh Jacobs a little bit of a break here, throwing this guy, and then he gets the score. When Jordan Love gets back, I'm really excited about Josh Jacobs still. As far as the receivers go, you don't want to play any of the receivers still while Malik Willis is quarterback. However, it looks like Jordan Love may be back this week, so exciting week 4 for the Packers. We'll see how they do. Going back down here, I know that one was quick. Another kind of surprising one from the week, however, not that surprising. We kind of guessed that like there was a good chance that Andy Dalton would come in for the Panthers and show competency, using that word a lot, but showing competency and bringing the Panthers back to life. This says more about the Raiders. We knew Andy Dalton was going to go in there and be decent. He was going to be a pro. He knows how to run an offense. He's smart. He's been there before. Shout out to the Panthers. Definitely, they look like they're competent. I'm going to say it one more time. They look like they're a team that like can hold their own now. Adam Thielen looked great, and then he got a major hamstring injury out on IR. Deontay Johnson is back to relevancy. He's wide receiver 2 solidified now, especially with that Adam Thielen injury. We're waiting on Jonathan Brooks. Otherwise, I mean, you can play Hubbard, but you want to see Jonathan Brooks in this offense now that Andy Dalton's there. Says more about the Raiders. The Raiders suck. It was a fluke game against the Ravens that they won in Baltimore. The Ravens are horrible. The fact that they let Andy Dalton, they weren't prepared for Andy Dalton, even though they knew he was going to play all week, and they like just looked like they had no idea what they're doing, was absolutely embarrassing. The defense for the Raiders is horrible. One of the worst defenses in the league. I don't know how they beat the Ravens at all. You continue to start Adams. However, this was like one of those games where it's like, is Adams going to quit in this game? Is Adams going to quit on this team this game? Is he going to lose his mind in this game? Like, embarrassing loss. We'll see if they can bounce back, but they're just not a good team. They're going to win less than 7 games this year after they just embarrassed themselves. Oh, last thing with the Raiders, I'm going to click off of it, but last thing with the Raiders, Zamir White he's done. That was his game to prove it. You can almost drop Zamir White. You can't drop him probably just because if Madison gets hurt, Zamir White's definitely worth something. But I'm out on Zamir White. If you have Zamir White, try to trade him for scraps. You probably can't trade him for anything, so you probably just have to hold on to him. But that was Zamir White's game to prove something, that he's fantasy relevant. He did nothing again against a bad team, and so we're done with Zamir White. Sorry if you have him. Moving on. Unfortunate game here, man. This would have been a fantastic game if Tua was healthy. However, with Tua not being healthy, the Dolphins just looked horrible. Without Tua there, you almost want to sit all of the Dolphins players. You can't really sit Achane, and you probably can't sit Hill, but there you have to limit expectations like crazy with them. Hopefully Tua comes back after his IR stint. Seahawks look good. Unfortunate JSN down game. A little frustrating. I think it's just going to be matchup plays with JSN this year unless Lockett or DK get hurt. JSN is a great talent. They play him in the slot, though, and Geno Smith is never going to target him first for the most part unless it's a good matchup where the defense they're playing against gives up a lot of points to the slot. So, for example, they play Detroit next week. I think JSN's going to have a great game again. However, he's just not the number one option. DK had a great touchdown. Tyler Lockett has plenty of targets in this game. He looks good. Zach Charbonnet goes off. So we'll see what the status of Kenneth Walker is coming into this next week. Shout out to the Seahawks, though. Take care of business, 3-0. Easy schedule for them to start the season, though. Another fantastic game. We knew that coming in. Detroit and at Arizona. Detroit bounce-back game. The running backs look good for Detroit. The receivers look good for Detroit. Laporta gets hurt. I don't think it's a major injury. However, Laporta's proving to just be overdrafted this year. He's going to struggle with injuries this year, it seems like, and he's going to be a tight end where we know tight ends are just up and down. Hopefully Laporta doesn't miss too much time if he misses any time, and he can just kind of figure out a little bit. Not exciting, though, if you have Laporta on your fantasy teams. He's looking like the odd man out in the Detroit offense this season because of injuries and stuff. So, and the emergence of Jameson Williams. So, overall, though, great win for the Lions. Like I said, bounce back win. Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr. gets in the end zone again. The rest of the offense doesn't do anything. I mean, McBride looks like McBride. He looks okay. He's a tight end. And then James Conner gets shut down. The Lions just really shut down opposing teams' running backs. So, not a great matchup for Cardinals offensive players, but Marvin Harrison Jr. continues to look good. So, you have that going for you as a Cardinals fan. What ended up being a decent game, I guess, but Ravens really dominated the Cowboys. Cowboys continue to look bad. A little worried if you're a Cowboys fan. I think this was meant to be for the Ravens. Like, they needed a bounce-back game, and they weren't going to lose this game. Lamar looks good. Zay Flowers is there. You know, I think the thing with the Ravens is that their tight end situation is just horrible. Both tight ends do nothing in this game. If you own Ravens tight end, it's going to really be like they're either going to be good for you and they're going to maybe get into the end zone, or they're going to be getting the targets that game, or they're going to do absolutely nothing. So hate it if you own a Ravens tight end on your fantasy team. However, the team itself is still good, and there's going to be games where they go off every now and then. So maybe you look to pivot. You definitely have to find someone else on the bench if you own a Ravens tight end, like another tight end to put on your bench. But I think that's like the downside if you have a part of the Ravens offense on your team, is the tight end, and that's just proving to be a mess. So, and it doesn't look like it's going to get better. Derrick Henry goes off. We knew that was coming. And the Cowboys now. The Cowboys look horrible. I know the game's close. I think Dak just eventually was like, all right, I just need to start doing everything because my running game's horrible and my defense is like not good this year somehow. So I'm worried as a Cowboy. If you're a Cowboys fan for real life, I'm worried about the Cowboys. However, they've started the season with some tough matchups. They still should be showing some more competency offensively. I know they don't have a great running game, but their line's decent. Ferguson comes back and looks good. CeeDee Lamb needs to figure it out. Maybe you shouldn't have sat out so much in the offseason, dude. Like, CeeDee Lamb, like, you need to take over the offense with Dak. Like, Dak's doing everything he can. CeeDee Lamb needs to toughen up a little bit mentally. Mentally, he showed some crybaby traits in this game, and he needs to go out there and be the guy that everyone knows he is and just take over some of these games. He was pretty much disappeared in this game. So, keep an eye on the backfield there. I think Rico Dowdle's starting to take over a little bit, and then maybe Zeke will just vulture some touchdowns. But I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Rico Dowdle a little bit. You just have to continue and wait and see more. So moving on. We got the Rams and the 49ers. Crazy game. Not a whole lot to talk about in this one, but it was a crazy game, so we need to do its due diligence here and talk about it. Brock Purdy looked fantastic in this game without a lot of his weapons, and it was because of Jahan Jennings. Jahan Jennings goes crazy. Kind of like you can't really overreact to it too much. I think Jahan Jennings is like definitely a guy. You can play him when Debo and Kittle are out. However, when Debo and Kittle come back, like he kind of is just going to disappear again. So shout out Jahan Jennings for a fantastic game. He's not going to keep doing that once Debo and Kittle come back. So keep an eye on that. Ayuk, same thing with him and what I just said about CeeDee Lamb. Ayuk needs to figure it out and be the guy that they just paid him millions and millions of dollars to be. He looks out of it still. It's like maybe you should have shown up to camp, dude. And ultimately probably cost him probably has a part in costing them a win in this game because he was really trash. I will say that Bell receiver for the 49ers is even worse, and he probably was the other half of costing them the game. Jordan Mason continues to be a play as long as McCaffrey's not going to be playing. Shout out the Rams, another team that just really needed this win, and they got it. Wasn't pretty, but Kyron Walker looks fantastic, and the backup receivers do enough in this game against what seemed like a decent defense, even though they kind of got a little bit exposed. Matthew Stafford's a dog. Can't really play him in fantasy that often, but he's a dog. And, yeah, shout out the Rams. Not much to say about that. They just need Kupp and Puka to get healthy. All right, Kansas City, Atlanta. Kind of a fun game here, too. Of course, Kansas City squeaks out a win. Some referee head stuff going on. The refs don't call a blatant pass interference. I don't think they were horrible in this game, though. I guess as a Chiefs fan, if you're a Chiefs person or own Chiefs player, you just want to see more from Mahomes. Like, stop throwing stupid picks. Like, go throw 4 touchdowns one of these days. Like, we know that you can do it. Your running game's horrible. Go and take over some of these games eventually. Again, it's tough matchups to the game, but, like, if you have these guys on your fantasy team, unless you have Rashee Rice, like, you're like, dude, can you do something? So eventually I think it'll start to click a little bit more. They'll get some better matchups, but yeah, it's kind of frustrating as of the first few weeks in fantasy-wise. Carson Steele, definitely they want to feature him. However, I just don't think he's all that amazing. He has a very specific running style that I don't think he's going to be like a high upside running back this year. Definitely a guy that's like probably going to continue to emerge because Pacheco's out. They do have Kareem Hunt coming in now along with Samaje Perine, so limit expectations for the running back room in Kansas City. The Falcons, tough loss. Looked decent for most of the game. Drake London looks like he's starting to gel better with Kirk Cousins now. He's getting a little bit more targets, catches another touchdown. The rest of the receivers there, you don't want to have to play if you don't have to, but they look fine. Kyle Pitts gets some targets in this game. He's going to get targets in the red zone. And Bijan gets mostly shut down. Yeah, you know what? I think Bijan got in the end zone. But, Kansas City defense is a tough matchup for running back, so continue to play Bijan, obviously. Hopefully the Falcons just get some easier matchups coming up, and the offense can have an explode one of these games. This one's going to be fairly quick. The Bills are really good. They're on a mission, I think, this year. James Cook's a dog. Josh Allen's a dog. We'll have to keep waiting to see who's going to be emerging as the wide receiver. Shakir's still in there. Keon Coleman did catch a touchdown this game, but there's some drama with him being late or something. Who cares? We just have to wait and see. Dalton Kincaid finally catches a touchdown. So, yeah, the Bills are just sick. And in this matchup, they destroy the Jaguars. Jaguars are horrible. I think Doug Peterson might get fired before the season ends. You're really worried about it if you own any players there. Christian Kirk isn't that good. I'm glad I don't have a lot of Christian Kirk shares on my teams. Can't really sell any of these guys for that much. You just hope like maybe Evan Ingram coming back in the offense will help them. Very well may, but fantasy wise, like then Christian Kirk's even like going to be worse because Evan Ingram's going to be taking a lot of those targets from the middle of the field. Maybe Evan Ingram, you can be excited about him. We'll see. Brian Thomas Jr. has a rookie game, doesn't do a whole lot. And then you're worried about the backfield. Travis Etienne Jr. He's still the guy there, but he just doesn't look all that good. If they're going to be losing like this, he's not going to do anything. We'll see. Maybe they'll get some better matchups, Maybe they can turn around. They're an 0-3 team, though, and they look like one of the worst teams in the NFL. So, not a great look. Another 0-3 team, shockingly, though. Crazy game here. Commanders beat the Bengals on the road. Shout out to the Commanders, man. Not only the coaching staff with Dan Quinn doing a great job with like a horrible defense in Washington, still finding ways to win, but shout out to Jaden Daniels. Best quarterback drafted in the draft class, in this last draft class, is going to be Jaden Daniels. He's the next Lamar, like we've been saying. He looks incredible. He's quick. He's shifty. You just have to hope he stays healthy. Like the next RG3, man. You just hope he stays healthy. He looks awesome. The team rallies around him. He makes plays. Terry McLaurin got going in this game. The Zach Ertz catches some passes. Both running backs look good. You just fantasy-wise, it's a great situation. You just hope, ideally, you have Daniels. He gets a lot of points rushing the ball, but like if his passing game is going to start clicking, like watch out, this team's going to be dangerous. So they're hindered by a bad defense in real life, but fantasy points to be had if you're an owner of Washington Commanders players. So it was a fun game. Moving on to the Bengals, they do get right a little bit, but they lose, and now they're 0-3. So Jamar Chase gets going. T. Higgins comes back, doesn't do a lot. He does get some red zone targets. They're going to use like 3 tight ends, so you don't really love any of the tight ends there. Jamar Chase explodes, like I say. Joe Burrow's a good play. This was a great matchup. Zach Moss has a great game. You hope that they figure it out and get some wins in real life. As fantasy-wise, you like what you saw. They're kind of going to get back into the groove here. It was a fantastic matchup, which isn't going to happen every week, but I think they're starting to find their own, and fantasy-wise, there's value to be had with Zach Moss, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. Keep an eye on T. Higgins and Andre, the receiver Andre. I don't know how to say his last name, but it's interesting to see that they still used Andre as much as they did with Higgins back. So keep an eye. We'll see how that goes, but that's going to be it for this one, guys. I don't want to make it too long, but it was a very fun football weekend. I hope you guys got something from this video, fantasy-wise or just reactions-wise. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like. Feel free to subscribe. We'll probably try to get another video out tomorrow breaking down some of the Week 4 games and start-sit stuff. And then we'll continue to do this football season the best we can, at least. Please feel free to comment if you guys have any specific fantasy questions, and I'll get back to you quickly. So, like I said, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Have until the next one. Peace out.